Today on JiK Labs, we're going to walk through the print options in Microsoft Excel. Let's get started. Now that you have all your data entered, you're ready to print it. So the very first thing you should do is take a look at it. The way I find it's easiest is you hit Ctrl+P for Control Print, which also brings up your print preview. Right now you can see we have our data and we still have our print tile set up so that our header data is on every single page of our print. But what we're noticing is that down here we see that we have 4 pages of data, and then when we get to page 3 we can see the GP percentages is cut off from the pages. So there's a few ways we can go about that. Right now we can see that we have the wide margins, so we want to take it and let's put it on narrow margins, because that way we'd be sure that it would fit. And we can see it fits, but look at how this is. It's not very pretty and it is off-centered. If we were to pull back up our page setup window, now with our page setup menu back up, we can look at all of the tabs. When we get to the margin tab, down at the lower left hand side of that window, we see center on page. We want to center our data or our printout horizontally on the page. And we're going to check that box and we'll hit OK, and it's going to update our preview. Now we can see on page 1 and then on page 2, our data is centered left to right, making it look very nice and professional. Other things that we can do, let's go back to the wide margins so everything is set up incorrectly. It is still centered on the page, but now if we go to page 3 and page 4, the GP percentages are cut off and out there and nowhere. It doesn't do us any good not having it on the same pages. So there's something else that we can do with page scaling. And we're going to click on that guy and we can say fit all the columns on one page. And we'll check that box, and now we can see that the GP percentages are now on the page with the corresponding data on page 2 and on page 1, and we're back down to 2 pages. The data is a little bit smaller because here we have the wide columns and we're telling it to cram everything in. But if we go back to narrow, you'll see everything fits much nicer. It's a little bit larger on that confines because when you're telling Excel to cram more data in or more information onto a sheet of page, it only has a choice to either shrink it down and scale it for you. Right now we're going to leave it at no scaling with the narrow margins because our data doesn't have that many columns, so it's able to fit onto a piece of paper. Right now this is defaulted to a letter, which is 8.5 by 11 inches, but to change the paper printout you can come in here, select the letter, and 11.5 A4, or down at the bottom you can select more paper sizes and choose whatever size print paper that you're going to utilize. We're going to leave it at letter 8.5 by 11 for the purposes of this demonstration. So that is one way to visualize your information before you print. Let's go back to our Excel sheet by hitting the back arrow, and here we are back in our normal view of our Excel data. Back in the print layout we have margins, page orientation. If you click on that you can also quickly select margins. It defaults to normal, wide, or narrow, or you can always select custom margins. If you click on that, it brings up the page setup window and you can come in here and edit them as you wish. Now keep in mind the margins view is the same place where we told to print our data centered on the page. So we're going to hit cancel here. We're going to go back to Excel. Also you can select your orientation, whether portrait or landscape. Portrait is standing up tall. Landscape, think of it laying on the side. The next tab is quick shortcuts for changing paper sizes. The print area. So let's talk briefly about print area. Print area is a defined area in which you want to print when it comes time to print. If we hit Ctrl+P real quick, you'll see we're getting all the data we have on that sheet. Now we're going to say we want to select our print area. First thing you need to do is select the area in which you want to print, come back up to the top to print area and say set print area. We'll click anywhere. We'll hit Ctrl+P again. You'll see that we're only printing what we selected, invoice 1001 to 1012. It's all on one page, and that's all the data that we get. We could go back to this screen, our main screen, select print area again, clear print area. That now means that everything's going to print. If we hit Ctrl+P, you'll see we're back up to our 2 pages of data. So let's go back again. Page breaks. Let's just say that you have some information on multiple pages, or these span multiple months. If you want it, you could come in here and we're going to select line 14 because this is when it goes from January to February. We're going to say breaks, and we're going to say insert page break. And if we go back to Ctrl+P, we'll see that we have all of January. We inserted the page break, and then we go all of February. We have February, March, April because we didn't insert those page breaks. You could have this broken up with page breaks for any criteria you have set forth. So we're going to come back up to the breaks, and we're going to reset all page breaks. We're going to hit Ctrl+P, and you'll see we're back to one solid stream of data, and the only breaks are when it has to jump to a second page or a third page of paper. Once again, we go back. Print background, we're not going to mess with this. And print tiles we looked at last week with our freeze panes video. You can see that up over here, over there, somewhere. We'll get it up on the screen for you. But pretty much that is what we're seeing right here. We have our headers, and we send our print tiles to repeat on the top of each page. So one more thing we can do. It's the same as setting the print area. We can highlight this area. Again, all of January's, let's just say we hit Ctrl+P. And then now we're looking at, it's printing the active sheet. We can drop down here, print the entire workbook, which is all the tabs that you have throughout your Excel sheet, or just print the selection. You can see that we've done that, and it's just our highlighted area. If we were to come in here and say print the entire workbook, you'll see we have all of the information that we've used in some of our previous videos. Our formatting video, as well as the data we're trying to print. But so for right now, we're going to leave it as the active sheet only, and we'll take it from there. You'll see today that we only have 2 pages to print for our data, but there are going to be times where you have multiples of the pages, and it could be hard to keep track of. Let's just say we sent this to the printer, we're walking down the hall to get them stapled, we drop them, now we got to resort them all. Of course, we know that this is an order by invoice number, so it's not that difficult, but if we click on the page setup, and that brings up our page setup window. And we go over to headers and footers. This you can add on the drop downs of headers, page of whatever, I don't really particularly use the headers because we already have our data, our title of our sheet, as well as our headers repeating on every single page. But what I do like to use is the footers. So we can come down here, click on that little drop box, and they have presets of data. But we're going to come in here and click on custom footers. That's going to bring up a new window for us. What you see right there is the footer window. You can have data on the left, in the center of your page, or on the right. Up here there are a bunch of shortcuts for you. So right now, let's say we want to put in the page numbers. We can come up here, click on Insert Page, that's page. And if we hit OK, it's going to show us page 1 on the lower right hand, or whatever page number it is on the lower right hand side. But if we have multiple pages, we can come in here and hit space, type of, hit space again, and hit this second piece, and this will show us page of the number of pages. So for our example, we're going to be on page 1 of 2 or page 2 of 2. Likely so, you can add dates and times, as well as the file name or the sheet tab. So we could come in here, enter the tab name, and let's say on the left hand side we want to enter the date, and let's say everything has been on one line, but if we hit enter, we can put in the time as well. And we're going to go ahead and hit OK. We're going to hit OK again. And now we can see on our print preview that this is 6/30/2021 at 2:22 p.m. This is our data tab and it's page 1 of 2. We scroll, this doesn't change, and we can look at page 2 of 2. That is a lot of data. The date and time is only important if you're printing this out many times, so you can always know if you have the latest and greatest data or whether or not it's last week's data. Let's get into our custom footer again. One other thing we want to show you, so to add or delete, you just highlight and hit the backspace. Highlight and hit the backspace. We're going to keep our pages, but on the left section, we want to include our logo. So if we click on Insert Picture, it's going to bring up a little window for us. Go to wherever your photo, logo, or whatever you want to add is located and select it. And then right now we have picture. But we know from our testing that this picture is entirely too big for a footer. So if we just hit OK, just to show you, we can already see that this is ginormous. But if we hit OK one more time, yeah, that's a little bit too big. So we're going to come in here and hit Page Setup again, Headers and Footers, Custom Footer. And once we got that up, we're going to highlight the photo. And then on this icon here on the right, we're going to say Format Photo. It brings up a new window. And right now we see it's 11 inches. That is entirely too big. So we're going to scale it down to a 1/2 inch. We're going to lock the aspect ratio. And we're going to keep everything relative. So if we change the height, everything else should update for us. So we're going to hit OK. So now we got 1/2 inch, or 4% of 4% of the original. And if we hit OK, we hit OK again. And one more time, we can see right now it is much smaller. We're going to hit OK one more time to get back to our print preview. And now we can see that that is much more doable. And it's just a nice little add to the confines of your print. You don't have to have it, but it is, if you wanted to add your logo or any photo, it is there. So now we're back at our normal Excel data. Let's click on the View tab and look at that View ribbon. Right now, we're on normal. That's what I generally utilize when I make an Excel workbook. We also have the Page Break Preview. Going to Page Break Preview, we can see these dark lines around the border is the area selected to print, and these dashed lines are going to be your page breaks. You can right click in here and insert a page break. And now you can see that it is entered between cost and sales amount. And if we were to hit Ctrl+P right now, we can see we're up to 6 pages of data because of that very weird page break. And the way it entered it was on the cell that we were in, and we entered the page break, kind of like when we froze the panes. So we don't want to do that, so we'll hit Ctrl+Z to undo that. But let's just say we wanted to insert a page break between cost and sales amount. So we're going to highlight column D, right click, insert page break. I don't know why we will want to do this, but we split it up now to 3 columns and 4 columns. You can see that solid line. We'll hit Ctrl+P again, and you can see we have 3, 3, 4, and 4. Now I should mention one other thing that I failed to do before. The dark solid lines are page breaks that you set. The dashed lines is the automatic page break. And you can also move those around a little bit. Say I moved that down one, and that made it a solid line, meaning that it is a set page break. But we're going to back that out with Ctrl+Z, and then you can also see page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. But we're also going to back that out one more time, and we're right back where we started with page 1 and page 2. That is the page break view. Another thing we can do is the page layout, which is a little bit easier to look at for me personally. The nice thing about this view is your headers are right here. You don't have to go into the page setup window and the custom footer. It's right here. You can click on that data. If we scroll down, we can see we have it here as well. And same thing on this page. Again, that's the page layout, page break, and then normal. I like to operate things on normal when I'm entering and manipulating my data, because it is just the data. When it comes time to print, you can utilize page break view or page layout to get an idea of how things are going to look. Or you can just do normal and a print preview and see exactly everything that you're going to see. This is going to be the most realistic of what you're going to see when you print this out, whether it's a piece of paper or a PDF. So right now, we don't have our printer hooked up to the computer, but we still want to print this because we want to email it to ourselves or email it to a client or a supervisor. Doesn't really matter who you're emailing it to. There's a couple of reasons why you may want to print to a PDF and email it off. For one, if you email it and you have a lot of equations and you haven't locked those cells, which is something we'll get into in future episodes or videos, whichever you prefer, someone can get in there, accidentally delete all your data, and if, let's say, you don't save your copy, or they delete the data and then you have to figure out what they did, send them another copy. If you print it to a PDF, it is a printed, copied. No one can mess up your data. So we're going to hit print to Microsoft Print PDF and we'll click print. And that brings up a save as window for you. So just like anything, we would come in here and call it 2021 6/30 print. We're going to hit OK or save. We bring up our file folder. We find today's print. There it is as a PDF. We double click on that guy. So here we have our PDF'd copy of our data. You can see it printed just as it looked on our print preview with our headers on the second page, as well as our footers on the bottom of each page. It doesn't matter if you have a black and white printer. If you print a PDF, you're going to get your color to come through, unless you tell it, only print black and white. But now this file is ready, it's saved. We can email it, share it to whatever we need to do with it, and we are good to go. Hopefully that clears up how to print your data from Microsoft Excel to get it formatted to print on as many pages or as few pages as you wish. The key there is look at the things that we showed you today and play with them. Your data may have more columns or less columns than ours, more rows or less. It's a matter of looking at it, seeing how you want it to print, and what is the best way for you to visualize that data once printed. Thanks for watching JiK Labs today as we went over some of the features that you need to utilize to make your prints look professional when you are printing from Microsoft Excel. If you like this video, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell, and we will see you all next week. Thanks for watching. And we'll see that there's no change because also you can select your more, what's the word I'm looking for? Criteria. It's a hard break of your data to break up some of your data. If we go back to print, well, if you have multiple, our print example only has 2 pages. Sometimes you can have way more to be printed to look, and we'll see you, and we.